Alright, what's up guys? Ramy here, and we're back with the next tutorial. And in this tutorial we are going to be covering if statements, else statements, else if statements, and a few more operators called the conditional logical and the conditional logical or. Now this might seem complicated, but it's honestly not too bad. And so in this little series, so you can keep your scripts and whatnot different, we're going to be creating a new script. I'm going to be naming it if, and I'm going to be doing camel case when I enter it in, if I can type today, which I can't remember if I explained this or not, but basically you start off with a lowercase in the first word, and then every word after that starts with an uppercase. And remember, no spaces in your scripts. So I just named that new script we created if-else statements. And I'm just going to go ahead and give it some room up here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create a couple of variables here. We're going to name it public integer A and initialize it to 10. Public integer B, and we'll initialize it to 10. Now we'll initialize it to 12. But also, you see right here, I'm going to comment this out with the slashes like I showed, so that doesn't run anymore. There's a different way to initialize code. So now how we have public integer A, so you can actually put a comma, and then we can put B equals, I like making mine clear, 12. And that is correct because it's in the same line before semicolon, so we could actually initialize even more variables. But that's all on you if you like doing it this way. Personally, I like doing it the way I did before down below that I commented out, but I'm just showing you for the sake of being informational, because it's all, it's just taste, whatever you like doing. But this is a different way of initializing integers, strings, anything. I'll be honest with you, we'll take a look. I've actually never tried that. Now let's see if we could do it. I've never done it with strings, but I'm sure it works the same way. Yes, as we can see, you can also do that with strings, but I'm just going to delete that out for the sake of this just being about if else, just educating you guys a little bit on that. Alright, so an if statement means that if something is true, then it returns a value. So I will give you a few examples. So down here in the start function, this is the two equal signs is the equivalent operator. It checks for equality. It doesn't assign a value. So if A is equal to 10, we'll put that in parentheses. And what you'll do after the parentheses is press enter to go down to the next line. Add two more curly brackets, and inside these curly brackets here is going to be the code that you want to be executed if A is equal to 10. So we'll just do the debug.log. A is, we'll just spell it out like that, is equal to 10. And now when we run that, that's going to be true. But just for the sake of saving time, I'm going to copy and paste this just to show you. Let's say if A is equal to 11, A is equal to 11. And that code is not going to run. But now we can put if B is equal to 12, debug.log. I could have just copy and pasted that. I already had copied. I don't know why I didn't. B is equal to 12. Now add our semicolon. Never forget that. I'll make sure we save it. And when we go back, we're going to click on our game object here. Then we're going to click on our script, our if-else statement, and we're just going to drag it on here so it's connected. Now when we hit the play button, we'll go to our console here. A is equal to 10 and B is equal to 12. And you'll see that the other script, or the other line, let me pull this back up, did not run because A is not equivalent to 11. So that did not run because that was false. That is how if statements work. Now we're going to be running a few more. I'm just going to delete this out. You're still going to have an example of an if statement. So now we're going to run an else statement. And an else statement, an else statement runs if the above statement, if the if statement above is false. So I should have just typed it out, would have made things a little simpler. There we go. So else debug log A was not equal to 10. I'll explain this to you. Alright, so now we're going to change the value to 12 on A. So when it starts, it's going to check to see if A is equal to 10, and it's not going to be. And since that is not true, it's going to just default to this else statement. It's going to defaultly say A was not equal to 10. So after we save it, we'll let it compile here. Alright. A is equal to 10. Well then, it's not what I expected. Make sure all items are saved. We're going to try this again. Well then, if we got our first error here, we shall figure out what's happening. So what I'm thinking is happening is because we have this saved right there. Let me change the variable. Yeah, that's what was happening. So with this public variable here, it was actually defaulting what was there. But one way we could actually fix that, so we don't have to change it every time how it's initialized up here, and the start function, we could actually change its value here. So I could put A is equal to 5. And even though it's initialized as 12 up here at the top, we can add in another statement. So we'll just paste that. So if A is equal to 5, it shall run that. There we go. And see, the thing about that is, let me explain that. There's so many different little rules to coding and everything. So even though you initialize your integers at the top, if you put something in the start function and change the variable's value in the top of the start function, that's what it's going to be equal to. It's going to totally ignore what's up here. But now we got that out of the way. We're going to actually change these to private because I don't want to change it inside. Alright. That keeps it from being in the inspector and being able to be seen or shared through different files. But that's in a later topic. But there's also, if you want to keep it public where it can be shared but not shown, you can do a thing called serialized field. But anyways, let's get to the else statements. We already did one else statement. And so then there's also an else if statement. So else if A is equivalent to 12, then we're going to put debug.log A is equal to 12. And on an else if statement, that means it can run, if you have more than one if statements, both of those will run. But if you have I'll show you an example in a moment. But if you have a else statement runs by default, if let me type this out so I can talk. It's throwing me off. Oh, that's exactly why, because we don't use those with the else statement. Alright, I'm just going to put debug.log these statements were false. Alright, so an else statement does not check anything. It's a default, so you don't put any brackets up here with any conditions. But what I was saying with the else if there's an if statement and an else if runs, only one of these can run, but two if statements can run at the same time, but only if it's if. And I will show you. I'm trying to go through this as slow as possible because I know some people get a little bit messed up on these things. So A is equal to 12, which shows because A is equivalent to 12 because A is initialized up here in the private integer, and it is not 10. Alright, so the way to show you this, so we put else if B is equal to 12, then it's going to run B is equal to 12. But because this is an else if statement, if this first statement returns true, it's not going to run either lines of these codes. So all we're going to see is A is equal to 10. Well, equal to 12. Let me fix that correctly. So that's all we're going to see, because since this first statement is true, it's not going to go to the else if statement or the else statement. A is equal to 12. So although B was true, it did not get ran because it's an else if statement. However, if we change it to just an if statement, if you want to run through the check to see if that condition is true as well as the first one, now we have B is equal to 12. Alright, now that we have that out of the way, I'm just going to delete this here, or actually we'll just comment this out for you with a slash and then the asterisk. At the end of this, I'll put another slash and an asterisk. That way you can see these later. For examples, an asterisk and a slash. There we go. So all this is commented out so you can check it later if need be. Alright, now we're going to be covering the conditional logical and the conditional logical or. So the way that works is it checks to see if two statements are true in a condition. So if A is equivalent to 12 and if B is equivalent to 12, then we shall return debug.log they are both equivalent to 12, and add our semicolon, make sure they're both on 12. Alright, and we're going to go ahead and copy this because we're going to before we run it, we're going to create a logical OR, and we'll put if b is equal to 14. Then we'll put one statement is true. I didn't mean to do that, but alright, then now we'll save that. Now let's go back. Now, they are both equivalent to 12. One statement is true. So by running that, we've seen that both of these conditions are true. Right here, only it doesn't matter if this side is, if a is equal to 12 or if b is equal to 14. Only one of these have to be true for this statement to run. However, up here in the AND, the logical AND, if we check to see if this is, we're going to hit save, is equal to 13, since it is 12, this first statement is not going to run anymore. So that's where, in a condition where you want more than one thing to be true for it to happen. So now we only have one statement is true. Alright. So now you see how that works. That's the logical AND. That's the logical OR, and it's something that if you don't get it, just go back over this, do a few more practice problems, because it's something that's going to be very important later on, and something that you'll really need to know. It's really handy when it goes to creating games. I know this is a little bit longer of a video than usual, but I feel like all of these things needed to be covered. And hopefully in the next video we will do a few things. We'll make our first simple game in the console. It's not going to be anything too major, but I'll cover it and show you how to get some input from the keyboard and whatnot. But this is a step. All of this stuff needs to be learned. It's the basis for starting to make a simple game. And thank you guys for watching. If you guys like this video and found it informative, comment below. If you need anything else covered, if you need me to go back over it, I'll gladly go over it. But if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.